It doesn't seem so long ago that Doctor Who was a pure program, unsullied by profanities and acceptable for children. Then Ian Marter's novelisation of The Enemy of the World provoked a storm with its utterly gratuitous use of the word bastard, and fandom was rocked. Now, of course, it is practically a requirement of the new and missing adventures that they should include shit, fuck, and other examples of extreme rudeness. The final straw, however, was The Ghosts of N-Space, which featured Broadcast Who's first naughty word, cow shit. A piece of innocence has been stolen from the world, and there's no excuse for it at all. Over the years, Doctor Who has featured a load of old bull, and never more so than when it ripped off, paid homage to, the legendary inhabitant of the Athenian labyrinth. Only a few years before he became Darth Vader, the ultimate screen villain of all time, Dave Prowse was given the opportunity to create an equally memorable protagonist for TV. Alas, somebody stuck an unconvincing bull's head on him, rammed glycerin up its nostrils to make it look fierce, and told him to caper around a cheap labyrinth set until he walked into a wall and fell over. Rather more convincing was the costume used several years earlier in The Mind Robber, although the knowledge that it's worn by Mr. Sparrow from the brewery in EastEnders diminishes its impact. After The Time Monster, you'd have thought the series would have learnt its lesson, but lo and behold, later that very decade, the same bit of classical mythology was plundered again. The Naimon, a partial anagram of Minotaur, clever camped their way through Season 17's final story with woolly heads, silly skirts, and obviously plastic horns. They never returned. Florana is one of the most beautiful vacation spots in the galaxy, or so we're led to believe. The Doctor was en route to this planet with Sarah Jane when he took an enforced detour to Exelon for yet another run-in with the dreaded Daleks. He won again, if you're interested. That he never reached Florana is probably for the best. On a BBC budget, this exquisite world would no doubt have been interpreted as a sandpit with a few plastic flowers strewn about. Just look at the much-vaunted Eye of Orion, which ended up resembling Wales on a wet weekend. Asbestos was a harmful substance discovered at BBC Television Centre in 1988. The Doctor Who team were forced to leave the building and film the greatest show in the galaxy in a tent, resulting in a more suspenseful and realistic production than had been intended. The Ballad of the Last Chance Saloon. The addition of a sing-alonga Linda Barron version of the plot to The Gunfighters made a novel change from the usual stock music, just as the plot itself was a refreshing break from those historicals in which the whole thing was taken seriously, and the correct people died at the end. This was, however, a missed opportunity for the record industry. They could have got Linda and Peter Purvis into the recording studio to lay down a fantastic new mix. And Jackie Lane too. Her piano playing was magnificent for someone who had never tried it before. The B-side, of course, would be Business is Business by Judith Hibbert, that rock classic from The Ultimate Adventure. Sleeping arrangements within the TARDIS have been the subject of much speculation. An early attempt was made to scotch the more salacious rumours by showing that the crew rested fully clothed on reclined pallets. In the permissive 80s, however, a more liberal attitude was taken. During Peter Davison's tenure, it seemed that hardly a week could pass without the cameras intruding upon his companion's nocturnal arrangements. Only Turlough and the Doctor himself escaped such prying. We watched as Nyssa built an enormous vibrator in her bedroom, and as Tegan was entered by a giant snake in hers. But the final insult came in The King's Demons, as the Doctor described a king-size bed to Tegan as another way of keeping warm. By Doctor Who's formerly pristine standards, this was practically the equivalent of full frontal sex, and we were shocked.